Do you understand what you just witnessed? This event took place last night in a stadium full of Arab Muslims screaming a chant that is an incitement to kill Jews and destroy the Jewish state of Israel. They are screaming, "In spirit and blood, we will redeem Al-Aqsa," which is an incitement for Muslims to kill Jews to save the Temple Mount, which just happens to be the holiest site for the Jewish people. Who do they have to save it from? From the Jews. Now, here's the kicker. These Arab Muslims were not screaming this incitement to kill Jews at a stadium in Iran. This was not a stadium in Gaza. This was not even at a stadium in Judea and Samaria. These are fans screaming this incitement to kill Jews and destroy the Jewish state of Israel at the Sami Ofer Stadium in Haifa, Israel, at the Maccabi Haifa soccer game, who were hosting the Israeli Arab team from the Israeli Arab town of Sakhnin. Those people screaming incitement to kill Jews are Arab Muslim citizens of Israel, fans of their Israeli Arab soccer team, screaming this anti-Jewish, anti-Israel incitement at a soccer stadium in Israel. I hope you understand the gravity of that scene. Don't go away. You don't want to miss the full story that you're about to hear. Folks, as you know, social media censorship is growing. The best way to support our video work for Israel is to subscribe to our video newsletter on pulseofisrael.com and to share our videos. If you are already a subscriber, then thank you. Now that you know that the chanters of that anti-Jewish, anti-Israel chant are actually Arab Muslim Israeli citizens, I want you to watch that scene again from last night. This is total incitement by a stadium, maybe not full, but it sounds very full, of Arab Muslims who are Israeli citizens in Israel. This should be headline news. Israeli politicians and the government should be screaming about this. But no, silence. There was no news about this on any mainstream Israeli media outlet. Not one politician in the government said a word about this despicable anti-Jewish, anti-Israel event by Arab Muslim Israeli citizens. However, whenever a Jewish soccer fan would say anything anti-Muslim incitement at a soccer game, it becomes headline news, with politicians wall-to-wall denouncing it. This is the hypocrisy of our reality here. But it's even worse than that hypocrisy, because these Arab Muslim Israeli citizens are voicing their support to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. That's what that chant's about. That should never be ignored. Never. Even worse, life for Arab Muslim Israeli citizens is amazing. They have better lives than their cousins in Jordan, Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, etc. across the Middle East. These Arab Muslims in Israel, they were doing so well under Netanyahu's government that many of them actually voted for Netanyahu. And today, for the first time ever in Israeli history, the Arab Muslim Brotherhood Ram Party sits in the coalition government. And they received 53 billion shekels as part of their deal to be part of this government and support it. Never have things been better for the Arab Muslim Israeli citizens. Yet never have their voices and actions been stronger in showing their true hatred towards Jews and the Jewish state of Israel. Just recently, we had the Arab Muslim riots back in May against their Jewish neighbors from all the way up north to all the way down south. On the one hand, it doesn't make sense, right? But it does. Folks, this is the Middle East, where the tribal culture of the Islamic world is strong. This isn't Kansas of diversity and respect and tolerance. However, there is a positive side to all of this. Now stick with me. On the one hand, our leadership is weak, very weak. And this is a message that I constantly share with you on Pulse of Israel videos. Our political, military, police, and even judicial leadership throughout the freedom-loving world, not just Israel, they're all focused on appeasement, and more appeasement. They have totally been brainwashed by the progressive left. The peace through strength ideology that we had with Netanyahu and President Trump are gone. The progressive appeasers are now in charge of these countries, and our enemies know it. However, the people are waking up to the lies, hypocrisy, and weakness of our leadership, not just in Israel, but across the freedom-loving world. Just think about how many more Americans are waking up in America after Biden's Afghanistan pullout fiasco, leaving the Taliban as one of the strongest armies in the world with more than $80 billion worth of U.S. military equipment. So now going back to Israel, understand, the Jewish population in Israel, the Israeli population, are a strong and healthy people, cognizant of our surroundings, and mostly proud Jews. A large majority of the Jewish population in Israel actually voted for Zionist or strong Jewish identity parties in the last election. 72 out of 120 Knesset parliament seats went to right-wing and or strong Jewish identity parties. Only 38 seats went to left-wing Zionist parties. The remaining 10 seats went to Arab parties. The majority of the Israeli population wants a strong Jewish state. But what killed the prospects of a strong right-wing Jewish identity government is the 3 decades-long crusade by the left with the justice system, the media, and the universities to topple Netanyahu by painting Netanyahu as a corrupt politician. It is only due to this 3 decades-long campaign that allowed the left to peel off some of the right-wing parties and voters to get rid of Netanyahu and instead create basically a left-wing majority government, even though they are a tiny minority, with a fig leaf right-wing prime minister, really prime minister in name only because he has little power. Without that 3 decades-long anti-Netanyahu campaign, today we would still have a strong right-wing Jewish identity-oriented government. But we don't. Just yesterday, Israel's defense minister, Benny Gantz, visited the western wall of the Temple Mount, and look how he was greeted. The people there all cheered for Bibi. That's referring to Benjamin Netanyahu. They don't care about Gantz. They want to get rid of Gantz. They want Bibi. As you always know about me, I like to add my positive outlook on things. And the positive, folks, is great. While some people will look at that scene at the soccer stadium and think, whoa, the Israeli Arabs are winning. The Israeli Arab Muslims are winning. They're showing their hatred and they're rioting across the country when they want to. Horrible. Well, I look at it all and I see that while we have weak leadership, the Arab-Israeli Muslim overconfidence in exposing their true hatred for the Jewish state of Israel will be their downfall. The day will come when the Israeli people will have the leadership that finally acknowledges the true motivation of many, not all, but many Arab Muslim Israelis, which their motivation and intent is to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. And when that day arrives, and it will arrive, we will finally deal with our enemies the proper way to stop them and finally allow for the peaceful coexistence of all those who truly want to live in peaceful coexistence with Jews in the Jewish state of Israel, enjoying all the freedoms and equality that they enjoy as Israeli citizens. And there are plenty of Arab Muslim Israeli citizens who think that way. While we all wish this day would come sooner than later, sometimes processes take time. It is not a question of if it will happen, but when it will happen. Stick with me, folks. Hold on to your faith in the one above, and keep on showing your strong support for the Jewish state of Israel, because we in Israel are the front line for the freedom-loving world in the face of a growing jihadi Muslim enemy that our leadership across the freedom-loving world right now is just appeasing. Hold on to your faith, folks. It's going to be good.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.